Everybody, thanks for being here. I'm going to let the video catch up to the audio here. It only takes about 5 seconds, so I think we're there already. Powerful tool or legal time bomb? Who knows? We'll find out today, I hope. Before I have the panel introduce themselves, use questions, make comments. I've been doing the CEUs a little different because a lot of these are being posted afterwards for CEUs. And we also have been converting them over to podcasts, which people like. If you are here for CEUs, use your question feature or comments, which one you have, and type in, I need CEUs. That's how I'll know you need CEUs. Just type in, I need CEUs. And that's how we'll basically work the CEUs going forward. With that being said, I'm going to have our panel introduce themselves well, I'll start with Cameron.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here. I'm Cameron Lay. I am the Senior Manager and Director of Training and Development for Ravenel Associates.
And thank you, Ravenel, for inviting us. It's much, much appreciated. So
thanks for being here.
Valerie.
Hey guys, I'm Valerie Garcia Giovanoli. I am an attorney at McCabe, Trotter and Beverly. We are a full-service law firm for community associations. My office is in Columbia, where our main headquarters is located, but we also have an office in Charleston, specifically Mount Pleasant. Happy to be here, and thanks to Ravenel.
Dawn.
Hi everybody, thank you again for having us. So I'm the practice leader for our community association division within Acrisure. And I specialize primarily and only in community association insurance. That's not just property and casualty, but risk management, benefits, all sorts of neat and interesting things, which is why I'm here today. Very excited to talk about this topic.
Please, audience, use comments, use questions. I don't use anybody's names, so you should feel free to ask whatever you like, and I will relay it. I could make a mistake, so maybe don't send me anything too top secret. I thought I would get this out of the way. I asked ChatGPT, are you here to take over the world and rule the human race? Because I know Dawn is very concerned about that. I don't think we need to worry because ChatGPT told me, no, I only want to do stuff that you don't want to do. I don't want to take over the human race. So Cameron, do you feel a little bit better about the future?
Very relieved.
If you believe ChatGPT, maybe it's an elaborate point. I don't know if it's being honest, but I think this is really what we're talking about here today, right? To do the stuff that we don't want to do as humans for the most part. So let's start off. Are we using AI wisely, or are we quietly creating a new liability? Valerie, let's just touch base a little bit on this because I think this is a very critical point.
Yeah, I would say it depends on who we're talking about, but I do see the use by many professionals in our industry as a liability. And I say that because all too often clients have decided to save on maybe fees that they may be charged by an accountant or an attorney or some other professional, maybe even an engineer, by resorting to ChatGPT and saying, hey, this is the answer. ChatGPT said it. And to go to liability, the business judgment rule exists in South Carolina, and that protects directors from any personal liability, but they have to exercise due diligence. And I can guarantee you consulting with AI is not considered due diligence because of the flaws that are inherent in AI. So I do think there's a liability out there, but I do also think many people are using it very prudently and wisely.
And we're going to touch upon that, audience, in detail. So we're going to actually give you a lot of examples. So you're going to get all the info I think you need in regard to that. Cameron, I use AI all the time. I don't use it for my legal advice. I don't use it for my insurance advice, but I use it to help me research topics, sometimes generate questions. It's a super valuable tool. I think it's definitely here to stay, and I think people need to learn about it. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. It has a lot of pros. There are cons with anything, but I'm trying to use it more and more. Some of the managers in our office are better at using it than I am, and I'm trying to use it as much as I can and learn it.
And we're going to talk about today on ways you can use it also, which will be really valuable to people if they're not familiar with it. You definitely don't need to be scared of it, though. Do you agree, Dawn? I mean, it works pretty easily, correct?
I think it's pretty simple. In fact, I think the best thing about it is it prompts you to get a little bit more defined in the responses.
A couple of quick comments I'd like to pull out. Let AI create your budget, but then it's going to have to create your apology email. So we'll talk about that. You may need to ChatGPT on the witness stand if you don't use it appropriately. And the last one is you can't lose, the algorithm says so. Valerie, none of these three are going to work really good in court, I don't think.
Absolutely not.
Comment, have you ever used AI for association related work? Audience, please, I would love to hear your comments on that. Like, I don't relay people's names, so feel free to be honest. Have you ever used AI for association related work? And if you want to add on to that what you used it for, that would be great. All right, so I'm going to start now. Who does use AI? Valerie, you said you're very familiar with it.
Yes, absolutely. We've been more in a testing phase, and we've created policies because with the law field, we are held to a confidentiality standard for all clients. So it's very restricted on what we can actually put into AI. And so it's important for us, understanding that maybe staff and other attorneys might be meddling with it, for everyone to understand what the limitations are for us as attorneys and a law firm. But yeah, my take, and I'm going to talk more about this throughout the segment, is it sort of is more of an assistant type tool. The way I envision it is the lawyer has to do the deep think. I would not rely on ChatGPT to do that, not tell you what the laws are, what the outcome is, what an opinion. It's wrong about 90% of the time. If you use it in that capacity, it's good to just kind of maybe give you other ideas, but the deep think still needs to be done by the people, the humans. I think it like a secretary who's going to type up something, that would be a great use of that tool. Maybe proofread something that the attorney has drafted to help catch those pesky errors. Those are sort of some uses that we see as beneficial at this point.
You're getting so far ahead.
I know.
You're
I'm sorry.
Like, you know, we have to keep people on the hook, right? For information later. You can't give them the whole story in the beginning. Go ahead, Dawn. But let's try to say.
We don't know where you're going, Ray. We don't get a to know where you're going.
No, and just so the audience knows, I don't like to do that because it's much more fresh, but it puts pressure on the panelists also, and they're good sports about it. But it's a lot better of a program when we learn things. I like to learn as we go along. Just some quick comments because I'm going to keep up with them. People use them for the minutes. People use them to help with their emails. I recently had an attorney give advice. I put the advice in ChatGPT, and the AI said the advice was not good. And it gave me many reasons why. Should I go back and question the attorney? Hold on. Okay, yes. Go ahead. I want to finish the question, but what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay. Recently, I had an attorney give advice. I put the advice. Dawn gets so excited, audience. She loves insurance. She loves it. She gets so excited. She can't wait. All right. Recently, I had an attorney give advice. I put the advice into ChatGPT, and it said that the advice was not good. And it gave me many reasons why. Should I go back and question the attorney, or would the attorney not like that? I am going to start with Valerie on this.
Well, number one, I don't think it matters what the attorney likes. Absolutely, you should ask the questions. They could be very wrong and the lawyer can explain why. But I see that as no different as, you know, you give a client advice, they go and talk to their neighbor who has a cousin who has a wife who's an attorney and they say something different. I think it's certainly advantageous for the end user to go and communicate with the lawyer about, you know, these are some other perspectives or things that I've heard. Can you explain this to me? And I think the lawyer would be happy to do that. I don't think they should be offended. And if they are, that's a whole other problem.
You know, Valerie, I think you should definitely mention it because you want to mention it in the appropriate manner though, right? Hey, you don't want to go, you're a moron and ChatGPT told me so. But I feel like this is a good way to double check that you're communicating properly to the attorney. Maybe you're not. Can you run with it?
Yeah, I would just say, well, two things. I would say that you don't necessarily have to tell the attorney you got it from AI. You just say that this is some things that I have heard or read. I think they'll gather if you copy and paste, you usually can pick up that it's AI. But one other thing that I did want to say is they said that they put a legal opinion into AI. And I do want to forewarn that if that is not a private AI system, that you have thus disclosed confidential information. So in South Carolina and most states, the confidentiality privilege is the client's, but they can waive it. And by disclosing an attorney's communication to third parties or the public, which is what you're doing with a free version of ChatGPT, you're waiving your privilege to that. And so if worst case, I don't know the circumstances, if there was a lawsuit and that information was requested in discovery, you couldn't claim privilege because you've already disclosed it. So do be careful with what you are putting into, especially the public versions of AI, because you could potentially be waiving attorney-client privilege.
Can you do me a favor, Valerie, when we get to the confidentiality section, because I have a whole discussion about that, can you keep mentioning the paid version? I don't want to get into it right now, the paid version compared to the non-paid version. I'm not familiar with that. So if you could kind of make a note on that and make sure you explain that, because I'm not aware of it. Dawn, what did you want to say before I interrupted you? Sorry.
No, I was going to actually comment about how when you're saying easy setup, we're finding that AI is involved in not just the chat GPT, but it's a function in a lot of programs that people are using right now, including internal software.
Right. And today we're going to concentrate on mostly though managers using and board members using AI. Correct, Cameron? That's the direction that we want to talk about today, right?
Yeah.
Accuracy. I'm going to come out with a statement, Cameron. There's no way it's dead nuts accurate. I use it a lot. I find a lot of things pop up, and it actually doesn't even tell you when it's not accurate. It doesn't like to admit it's wrong. But go ahead, Cameron.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've put some things into. I always think you have to review. I put an engineer's letter in there the other day to try to write a letter to a contractor, and there was something that was blatantly wrong. The temperature of something was just totally off. So I think you have to be aware that it does have limitations, like anything, really.
Valerie, what scares me is that when it makes mistakes, though, it doesn't tell you that it's not sure. Have you found it's the most confident person you've ever met in your life?
Yeah, I hate that about it. I would like for it to just say, I'm not quite sure, or turn on the deep think so I can do deeper thinking. But when you do correct it, it does take criticism like a champ. It's like, oh, you're right. I was so wrong.
It does. I did ask it one time, how many times can I insult you? Would you ever be angry or ask you the right question? It said indefinitely. You could never hurt my feelings. Dawn?
I don't have feelings.
How about you? Yeah, it's wrong a lot, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was for Dawn.
No, I was just saying before we started the program that I put in a CC&R as a master deed, and it specifically misquoted sections. And I went back and said, don't you mean Article 10 instead of Article 9? And I went back and it said, sorry about that. And then it came up with a different article, even though I told it was wrong. And I actually pointed to the article that it was located in, and it still couldn't get it.
What's interesting, though, is it's learning, right, Valerie? You're actually teaching it. Like my ChatGPT, I've used it so much since day one on the paid version. It knows a lot about me. Valerie, do you agree?
Absolutely. And I always made a joke when we first started kind of testing it out just to see how we could integrate it into this firm to make us more efficient. I felt like that was the sole reason it existed, because it was wrong about everything. And I'm sitting there telling it, no, look at this statute. No, look at this case. And I'm like, I'm teaching this thing. And I got a little frustrated because it didn't seem to be helping me with efficiency, but it's definitely learning.
All right, so let's go through some of the ones that came in from the audience, and I love the samples. They're a good way for people to learn. And some of them I don't know the answer to. Minutes. Someone wrote in, I have it write the minutes. Cameron, I'm guessing it's okay to maybe check the grammar of the minutes, but not the content, because you can download transcripts into it. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the way it spits out minutes. I feel like I have to clean them up. I feel like it puts more stuff in there than I would normally put into my minutes. Like, minutes are not supposed to be a transcript. So it frustrates me a little bit when it comes to taking minutes. But I know a lot of our managers do love it for minutes. So it's a personal preference, I think.
Dawn, I tend not to use it for minutes. I mean, I don't have to do as many minutes, though, I think, as the average manager does. But what do you think? And we'll go to Valerie for the legal.
Well, I like it after a meeting, especially a board meeting that is perhaps online, and I want to summarize what information has been discussed.
Oh, so use it for to summarize things. Yeah, I find it to be excellent for that. If you
It's
just
good
got to make
for
sure it may not. Go ahead, Cameron.
it's good for like action list items. You know, Cameron's going to do this, John's going to do this, Courtney's going to do this. But that's not really the format of minutes.
Do you tell it something about each person, Cameron? Like you like, okay, I'll just pick like John Doe's really annoying. ChatGPT, don't give him that task. I don't want to be anywhere near him at the next event. Do you share like that stuff with ChatGPT, Cameron?
No, I do not. It would be funny. Maybe I'll try that.
Okay. Valerie, I mean, how about minutes? The legality of it?
I see nothing wrong with allowing ChatGPT or other AI softwares to prepare your minutes. Again, I'd go back to it needs a level of human oversight and input. So you're inputting the information. It's essentially organizing, again, using that typist example, a secretary who's going to type it up for you. And then you're going to finally review it before it gets approved and deemed the minutes for the meeting. The one thing I would heed caution on is, and this goes to just keeping minutes generally, executive session. My instruction is typically not to include any minutes with regard to conversations held in executive session. That's the purpose of executive session, to keep it confidential. And so you don't want to put that into a public AI software, nor do you want that in your minutes anyway. So that would be the one area I would be cautious with in using AI for meeting minutes.
Valerie, can I ask you to hold another question if you remember, or maybe the audience can remember too? I want to know if how about this a discovery for the future? So I'll ask that when we get to the confidentiality section, because that's another thing I never thought about. Dawn, the next one is somebody mentioned about writing emails. I'm thinking like, sure. I mean, I use it to double check my emails and my grammar. How do you feel about that?
You know, I still think you need to give it a look over because different punctuation can provide different emphasis and perhaps change how you wanted the email to actually portray itself, the tone, if that makes sense. I also think that the accuracy, depending upon the subject matter, needs to also be reviewed because we've seen that the AI can go in different directions depending upon how it feels the information should be portrayed. So accuracy is extremely important, but it's hard to double check sometimes when you are treating it almost like a Google search engine at the same time.
The way I use it, it's great. I don't know if you guys find this. It asks me, do I want it to be very casual? Do I want it to be formal? It gives me a bunch of options to pick on how I want to set the tone of the email. Valerie, do you also get those prompts, or is it just me?
Yes, I do. And I think we're gonna talk, I don't want to jump ahead, but I think we're gonna talk about, writing emails with AI and our input on that, right? And later?
I think so. Just make a note of it. And if we didn't, I'll double check. I don't know if I went that deep into particulars.
Yeah, no, that's a great option where it says, even with like QuickBooks invoicing, it'll say, do you want to send a stern follow up on this AR friendly, and give me some more background and I'll draft it accordingly. I do think that is a pretty neat tool within AI.
What do you write? Go get them. Make them miserable. ChatGPT. I hate them. Okay. Let's see. The other one was this. 3 people sent this. This one makes me nervous. I think it's going to be a big disclaimer. RFPs. Cameron, yeah, man, RFPs take a lot of work. I mean, how do you feel about RFPs?
I have used it to write RFPs. I've used, an RFP from maybe a different project, a different property, and given it prompts to edit it. Gosh, it is a huge time saver. Again, you can't just accept that is good to go. You've got to review it, but it saves a lot of time.
RFPs, Valerie.
I don't have anything else to add. That's not something with very much confidentiality issues. And I agree with Cameron. It's very good at organizing that type of stuff and saving you time typing it yourself. Again, you got to give it the inputs though, and do the review.
Yeah, I think what I was nervous about, Dawn, is you really got to review that really carefully because you're sending it out to get quotes. And I just don't know if I would count on it 100%. I mean, it could easily write 100,000 square feet instead of like 10,000 square feet. Dawn, do you agree at all, or?
I do agree because insurance, we use AI for a lot of information relative to underwriting, and a mistake can wind up in a real pickle in our industry at least. And I can imagine putting out wrong information in RFP or RFQ could be an issue as well.
But man, it will save you like it'll do it in 10 seconds, what would take you an hour. Do
Yeah.
you agree, Cameron? The time saving is huge. It's phenomenal. So,
Yeah.
somebody mentioned it's all about the prompts. Yes, that's how you teach ChatGPT prompts. ChatGPT knows a lot about me. I was joking before we went live. The minutes, are you saying you allow ChatGPT to hear the board meeting so it can compile minutes? I think there's a couple different versions of this. If the board meeting's recorded, you can download a transcript. I think most people probably have it correct. It's own inputted notes. Valerie, this is going to be a big one back to confidentiality again, right?
Absolutely. I think that, again, when we go to what software are you using, you need to look into whether or not it's open to the public versus private. There are options for private. But in either event, a transcript, it can arguably become part of the association's records. Remember, in minutes, we're not transcribing everything everyone said. You don't even have to say, but this person took this position. And so that document could potentially be disclosed in litigation through discovery, whereas the minutes that are ultimately produced from that document, maybe that's the objective, or could protect, some things that were said in a meeting better than a transcript. So I would keep caution with that. If you are going to use the transcript option in your, live stream virtual type meetings, then I would dispose of it because it's not a record that has to be kept as part of the association's records. And so you don't open that door for a potential litigant to argue that it is a record that needs to be disclosed.
I use it for my live streams to convert. If I want to have an article about this live stream, I will use it. But what I don't allow it to do is quote people. I have a huge disclaimer because I can't remember, and I don't feel confident allowing ChatGPT to say that Valerie made a statement. So what I'll do is I'll have ChatGPT just summarize the article, and I have a huge disclaimer at the end that says nobody on the panel looked at this. It may be complete garbage. Take whatever you want from it, but double check the video for yourself. So I do not trust it 100% for transcripts. It does make mistakes. And for me, I think I would feel awful if it misquoted someone on the panel. Board meetings, Zoom meetings. Yeah, it could transcript all this kind of stuff. All right, let me throw some quick ones at the panel. Rewriting tense emails. Anybody have a problem with this? Yes, no, or maybe. An audience, why don't you chirp in here too if you want to? I will start with Cameron. Yes, no, or maybe.
Yes.
Dawn?
I use it all the time. I try and talk myself off the ledge.
I know, I use it too. And sometimes I'm horrified by it tells me to calm down. Valerie?
Personally, no, but as a practice in a law firm, maybe, depending on to whom the email is addressed.
Well, Valerie, you're good at writing emails though, like that. So you do them right. Somehow you do it in a nice manner, but terrifying at the same time because you're an attorney. So drafting violation letters. Okay, I'm going to be curious. Cameron, if you don't have an opinion, I don't want to put everybody's spot, but how do you feel about this one?
Well, we have a kind of standard violation letter, so we don't really need to use that for violation letters. But I do use it, and maybe you're going to get to this. I use it to craft architectural review letters in some instances.
Dawn?
No, typically not, because our letters are going to come from carriers. Now, whether they're using AI, our system, to be clear, is a closed AI system that we are using internally in most carriers as well. But I would say anything that has to it could be used in court, we'd want to really make sure we're reviewing it and putting the information in versus an AI software.
I don't think I would trust it for this one, Valerie. What do you think? Well, you would know.
I think for some type of form letter, like Cameron mentioned, they already have their form. I think it would be a great starting point to get something together. I also think that because our practice is so specific to governing documents, that it may be beneficial to have a form for each client, because some may have some very long violation process that has a lot of different things you have to address in a violation letter, whereas another community, it just sounds like overkill. So those documents, the governing documents, are already a public record. You could input those into your AI software and ask it to generate a standard form violation letter to comply with any of the requirements in the governing documents. And then, of course, look at that, make sure everything is sound and it lines up with the governing documents you proposed, and then have a form letter. And then obviously you can tweak it per case by case, depending on to whom you're sending it.
I typed in ChatGPT I was listening to you, and I wrote, "Can I use you to write a violation letter?" And it wrote, "Absolutely. You could use me to write any HOA or condo violation letter, and I could tailor it, blah, blah, blah." Yeah, that's why you can't trust ChatGPT. So let's see. Translating communications for diverse communities. This is like in regard to discrimination maybe, or being tone deaf to other kinds of communities that you may have, and you may not realize it. I'm thinking, Cameron, on this, that this would be a good one. Why not? See what it says.
Excuse me. Yeah, I definitely think I haven't used it for that, but I think that that's a great opportunity to use it.
Dawn, on Thursday we have a live stream. Modern woke issues board should not ignore until they explode. Valerie's going to be there, and so are you. I actually had a lot of fun researching this because I used ChatGPT and it taught me a lot. How do you feel about using ChatGPT in this manner?
I think it's the issue more of looking at patterns for ChatGPT a lot. And so abnormal patterns can be an issue, right? And I worry about discriminatory practices, meaning it picks out something that it shouldn't, or applies a certain practice unintentionally.
But Valerie, this is a great way to use ChatGPT. You have a very diverse community. Why not throw it in there and see what it comes back to? You don't have to take the advice. How do you feel about it?
I think I'm a little confused on this exact use. Are we saying that we're using it to basically create messages in other languages?
No, I'm using it to maybe not insult or make your, it's really easy nowadays to offend people when you just don't have to. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about craziness with little slights, but why not? If you have this diverse community and you're not familiar with a lot of the background, maybe run your letter through ChatGPT if it's a touchy subject, and see if it maybe tells you a different way to write it.
I think that it's just like anything, though. When it gives you the output and you're reviewing it, what are you going to cross-check it? How do you know it's not telling you to say something extremely non-politically correct or offensive? So I think that my concern there is that I'm always going to review any output from AI. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to go consult somebody that does. So that would give me some pause to use that and rely on it, especially because I don't have any information or experience to cross-check it against.
All right, audience. So this is where you forgot everything I just said and you listened to what Valerie said. Remember that. That's why Valerie's here. That's why I can't do these on my own. So this one, this is a cautionary one. People want to be careful about this one, right, Valerie?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Summarizing long meeting minutes. I find that it's awesome for this, Cameron. It could take like a 5-sentence paragraph and put it into 1 sentence for me, and it sounds great. Do you agree?
I definitely agree. Super helpful for that.
Anybody disagree with this on the panel? And the last one I have is AI can reduce burnout, improve your tone, and save hours when used as a drafting tool and not a decision maker. When used as a drafting tool, not a decision maker. Cameron, do you think that's going to be the big lesson of the day today?
Yeah, I think that really summarizes it. Drafting tool, but not, we just keep saying, check it, check it, check it. Don't just assume that what it spits out is the gospel, basically.
Dawn, how do you feel about that?
I agree. I certainly do. But I also, again, I'm a little hesitant in worrying from an insurance perspective about all those issues: bias, discrimination, copyright infringement, intellectual property, all the things that can save you time in the beginning, but later on, what's the cost as far as time, especially if you have to sit in court?
You know, Cameron, before I go to Valerie, it's interesting. I'm noticing a trend here, right? So here I am, Ray Dickey, the guy that does live streams. And I love it. Yeah, okay, use it for this. You're a little bit more open to using it. Then we go to Dawn, it decreases a little bit more. And by the time we get to Valerie, it's basically like, maybe not so much. Right, okay. So Valerie, same question. How do you feel about using it as a drafting tool compared to a decision maker?
I think it's great for that, but I would emphasize that subject to confidentiality, that you're not putting stuff in there that's going to potentially risk disclosure. But I would say rough drafting tool, because the decision maker absolutely should not be a decision maker, but the decision to send that letter out that it just spits out, you're letting it decide. So you need to decide what that final version looks like. So I would just emphasize a rough drafting tool.
I'm going to go through these quick. Panel, just jump in if you feel a certain way about it that I'm off base. Creating first drafts of policies, we went over that. We just actually did the issues with it. Generating checklists, I would say, why not? Anybody on the panel have a problem with it? It's not going to be your final checklist.
I love checklists. That's one of the things I think is great, especially, let's say, hurricane preparedness. What are some items that boards should be thinking of? Not only that, but checklists for safety, building inspection lists. I think it's great, but again, you do have to review it and look at your specific situation in a very prominent light, meaning that can't use it as a broad stroke.
Dawn, I bet you do love checklists. You got a little excited there. You're a checklist person.
I am a checklist person.
Do you give your kids a checklist all the time to get things done?
Let me.
Okay.
I think it would be a good time to throw in, I mentioned this to the panel before we got on, but I actually use an app. It's called the Operator Standard, but it does help with professional and personal development. And what it does is it integrates an AI system that you input, your goals or what you're trying to achieve, and it helps you come up with critical tasks, and it gives you a task list that you can manually enter or use the AI feature to help you develop the task necessary to get to that goal. Love it. It's helped me so much tremendously in the last 2 months. So I just wanted to throw that out there because of the checklist topic.
ChatGPT is a great motivator. It really is. I mean, you could type anything in there, and it'll never get tired of hearing from you, right? Like sometimes my wife, I've been married 34 years, she's tired of hearing from me, Cameron. ChatGPT, never tired, thinks I'm terrific. Everything I say, it knows to tell me whether it's right or wrong. So. Okay, preparing RFP comparison summaries. Cameron, I don't know. This one makes me nervous. I don't know. What do you think? You don't?
I think that it's okay to use it for that.
Okay. Dawn.
I'm a maybe. I really am. I think in a rudimentary way, yes. But I think you really have to double, triple check, because if it extrapolates the wrong information or has a bias, that may be a problem in your checklist.
Okay. Valerie, I think this is all about like I agree with Cameron that you can use it, but you just have to make sure that it's a draft and you're double checking it.
That's right. I agree.
I did ask ChatGPT, Valerie, and I wrote, I'm feeling down because Valerie is always right and I am wrong. And ChatGPT told me, Ray, let me tell you something. This comes from watching you lead chapters, expos, retreats, live streams, and real world situations where 50 people at a time are pulling you in different directions. You're not always wrong. Thank you, ChatGPT. I'm not going to get that from Michelle, my wife. That's great. I tell my wife, she's going to be like, just tough it out. It's your job, and you don't know as much as Valerie. That's wonderful. I love it, Cameron. I love it. Thank you, ChatGPT. Okay. Valerie, do you mind sharing the AA program that you were using for motivation? Or do you want to keep that to yourself?
Operator Standard. It's in the app store on your mobile device.
Okay. You know what about ChatGPT though, Valerie? It's going to remember I asked that about you now, and somehow it's now going to be stuck with it till I tell it to get rid of it. Okay.
No, what you're going to do is everyone's smartphone has listened to this, and now you're going to get advertisements for that application on your phone.
It's true. It's going to be scary. People are going to.
I do need to, I guess, asterisk. It is a very new program, and I heard that it's like in testing phase, and it might be closed to the public, but it'll reopen. But just keep your eyes open, peeled for it. Operator Standard. I don't know if they're accepting new members, but it's developing, and it's an amazing tool in my opinion.
But you're putting a disclaimer. Don't let it run your life. Don't come back. Don't come back to you if you don't like it. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Legal. Interpret. I'll start with Valerie on these. Interpret governing documents. I have used it to interpret complex paragraphs of legal mumbo jumbo, Valerie. I think it's done a good job, but I'm not relying on it.
Yeah, I think that this is a maybe. I have no problem with allowing it to take a stab at it. It might take an interpretation that I haven't considered, but I would never rely on it. And I would go back to, there's 2 points I guess I would make. One is I don't see how it's any better than Adobe's OCR feature, which very often will miss a term that you're trying to search. I don't know what other, because you upload it, it's going to search it. It's using the same essential technology to pick up on terminology. And I don't know if any of you guys use Adobe, but I've got the highest level of Adobe on our, because we use PDF so much that it sometimes will miss. You Control F and look for, fines, and it misses it. So I would think that AI also could potentially miss relevant provisions. In addition to that, I think that, and I think Don has a story about actually where it was citing the wrong sections. And then the second part is it's not a lawyer. It doesn't know, I would not rely on a legal opinion, which an interpretation of a governing document is just that. But again, I'm not against it. Governing documents are publicly recorded documents. You can upload them, even if it's a public AI software. You can see what it says. Maybe it sparks some inspiration or some ideas or things that you want to look into, but it should not be the end all be all for an interpretation of any governing documents.
Dawn.
I look at this saying, if I'm going to do this interpretation, but I'm not going to speak with the attorney, I think it puts managers and boards in a very precarious position, because if they are wrong, their professional liability most likely will not provide them a defense or any type of indemnification. So I think it's fine for a simple overview and to kind of get a position to then speak with the attorney or other professions to make sure you have an accurate result.
Cameron, I use it like we just did a live stream on bankruptcy in Florida. And there was a one lawsuit. So in the past, I'd have to read the whole lawsuit and it would take me forever. And I would never read it properly, right? I used ChatGPT and it did a really good job of summarizing it. But remember, I'm not the expert on my live streams. I can say anything I want because I have people like Valerie and Dawn and in yourself in certain regards. How do you feel about using it? But I thought it was amazing, by the way.
I think it can be helpful if you've got 70 pages and you don't even know where to start. It can help to maybe narrow it down to the section, and then you can read that section yourself. But I don't like what you put interpret, because I feel like it's not our job to interpret the governing documents. That is an attorney's job. So I would maybe, if you change that word to something other than interpret, I would be more inclined to say yes or maybe, but I don't like interpret.
I would say maybe, but go ahead.
That's
please.
a great point, interpret. And I think for finding something in the documents, that can be useful. And as Valerie pointed out, sometimes the find doesn't always work. But I get asked a lot of times, is this a common expense, the deductible? And South Carolina being the wild, wild west, every document is essentially different from each other. So we do have to read those documents. So to find a specific section, perhaps it's helpful, but to interpret, as Cameron said, no, I'm not on that.
Valerie, did I go to you on this?
Yep. And
Okay,
I agree wholeheartedly with Cameron. I think when I mentioned interpretation being sort of a legal opinion, I agree that that's something. I mean, obviously, if it says, hey, the floor is black, there's no legal opinion necessary to interpret it, but we're usually talking about these ambiguous terms, which often exist in governing documents. And I do think that's within the purview of the association's attorney to provide that guidance and not AI. And I 100% agree with Don's point as well, where that's not exercising your fiduciary duty and making an informed decision. You're relying on essentially an upgraded version of Google to give you a legal opinion. It's not going to protect you from liability.
It is amazing though how fast it works, right, Cameron? I mean, you throw a 70-page document in there and then you can ask it to fine tune. It is pretty amazing. Do you agree? I think
it can be helpful to find, specific things about rules and regulations, or, a quorum requirement, or something, you know, small like that, that again is not really, you're not interpreting, you're just trying to find where it says something that's pretty black and white.
I always feel like I use it in a manner that if it's wrong, it's not going to have any major repercussions. But
Yeah.
go ahead, Valerie.
Well, Ray, you said, you know, putting a lawsuit in there and trying to summarize it. And while I wouldn't do that, obviously, as a defending or even being prosecuting a lawsuit, I think it could be helpful if I know what the lawsuit says, I've read it, I understand it, and then I want to put together a summary in layman's terms for a client. That could be a good way for me to save time and manually having to dictate that, or obviously with my final review before it goes to a client. So that would be a good use for our practice.
I find it amazing because I'll keep asking, dummy it down, dummy it down, dummy it down for me. You know, break it down to its most. But like I said, audience, I don't have to be right. I'm not an attorney. I'm not here to offer professional advice. Everyone else on the panel. So I have a lot more flexibility than Valerie would or Dawn would, and Cameron also in her profession. Draft legal correspondence. I'll start with Valerie. There's the word draft.
Yeah, well, for the boards and managers, I would not be doing that. Just because you used AI doesn't mean you should be preparing legal correspondence. As far as from the law firm, I think, again, AI is a good typist. And so as long as I'm giving it the inputs and the law and the decisions are made by an attorney licensed to practice, then I think it would work well as far as rough drafting anything legal correspondence.
Cameron.
I don't know that this is really a question for managers because, you know, we're not drafting legal correspondence. That is the attorney's job. So,
Dawn, you're not going to like this one, right?
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I don't think that boards should be involved. I will give you an example. So I had some marine work being performed by a community, and I asked for a copy of the contract that they were going to enter in with the contractor. And they said, yeah, here it is. It's already signed and taken care of. And I got it and I said, who wrote this? This is the worst contract I've ever seen in my life. And you essentially have given all of you're indemnifying the contractor. You're holding them harmless. Who is the attorney who wrote this? I'd like to have a word with them. I got a phone call after the meeting. It was the board president. And she said, is this bad? And I said, was what bad? And she said, we didn't use an attorney. We used ChatGPT and compared it to other contracts, and it had similar wording, so we thought it was okay. And I said, please, I said, you know that they signed this, and this is now a legal document. I said, you've just practiced law without a license.
Boy, Valerie, I'll let you comment on that.
I think that there's definitely an issue there, especially with regard to, like, obviously everyone can be pro se, but when you are a director or a manager of an association, that pro se line is very blurred. So I would agree that you could potentially be risking a claim of unauthorized practice of law, which is illegal in our state.
Replacing attorney consultations. This would be disastrous. Does anyone on the panel think this is a good idea? Valerie, any additional commentary on that?
You said replacing legal consultations? Oh,
replacing
yeah.
Attorney consult. Hey, if ChatGPT tells me it's all right, I mean.
Yeah, I think this goes back to, I think the initial comment that I made, using ChatGPT as sort of your professional, whether it be an accountant, an engineer, or a lawyer. I would strongly advise against that.
All right, so Dawn, I think this would be a good point, and we're going to go into some caution things here. Why don't you talk about the insurance aspects and really drive that home to people, because that is going to be a disaster.
Well, again, the attorney should be providing the consultation. Unless we're going to see Valerie like this, you know, it really doesn't replace a human. And also there's critical thinking that goes on in a consultation. And not all facts can always be determined ultimately from just putting in a one-sided biased opinion or request, meaning that an attorney will usually evaluate and ask more leading questions to determine what the appropriate scenario that should be applied from a legal standpoint. So, for example, it's not always black and white. It's gray. It could be dark blue. It could be navy. An attorney is going to use their critical thinking to find out specifically, what angles to use, and of course, how to apply that legal thesis.
Dawn, I wanted to scare people into thinking that they may not have coverage for
They
defense.
don't have coverage, and they won't. I mean, the other aspect too, and we're going to get, I assume, further into the insurance specifics of it, but we do have to be very careful. Your directors and officers coverage, no matter who your carrier is, will say that there is a professional liability exclusion. What does that mean? It means don't act outside of your scope of authority. If you're not acting as a board member volunteer, then you don't have the applicability of that coverage to defend you. If you act as an attorney and you consult with ChatGPT versus a professional, Valerie spoke about the business judgment rule, you're breaching your fiduciary duties, and you're going to be personally open to litigation and costs.
I want to do it now, Dawn. I think we hit a lot of it because it's so important. I don't even want to run the risk of running out of time about this. So
Yeah.
if I just break that down to the most simple statement, if you use ChatGPT for legal advice or other types of professional advice, and you shouldn't have, an insurance company could use that against you and not provide you coverage. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. It's called malpractice. And essentially, you are committing malpractice without the opportunity of having insurance to financially defend you.
Cameron, I'm going to
Transfer of risk, right? We're transferring financial risk. So insurance carriers, when they know that there's the opportunity for you to skirt financial, you don't want to spend the money on an attorney. Well, you're using ChatGPT. Well, the insurance is wise to that. We know. So we put those exclusions in place.
I think Dawn raised a good, she said the word malpractice, and I would just elaborate on that malpractice is committed by an attorney. ChatGPT and the board cannot commit malpractice. And the thing is that if I commit malpractice and the board makes a decision based on that, I have a policy to cover that claim against me and my firm. ChatGPT does not. And I think the insurance understands that risk shifting, and you don't get that protection with ChatGPT legal opinions, in addition to all the other liability issues it exposes the board to as well.
Cameron, this makes me the most nervous with people using ChatGPT. I'm afraid of a board member using it, trying to save a couple bucks instead of making a phone call to the attorney, and then finding themselves not covered, and then just praying that they're going to be indemnified, which they should be. But, hey, you never know what could happen. This part makes me really nervous, Cameron, and I want people to understand that.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, and I try to really put my foot down and say, you cannot do this. You have to use an attorney. I understand it's usually down to, saving money, but it's not appropriate.
You're saving money for all your friends and neighbors, and they're going to be the same ones that end up suing you and not wanting to pay for you at the
And
end.
then you're going to end up spending more money,
Yeah.
a lawsuit. So
AI does not know your state statutes.
I just want to comment on Cameron that I like to say in Cameron's example, it's the price now versus the cost later. So boards are looking ultimately at the here and now, but not thinking at the big picture. And a lot of times I will say that the cost is triple, double, quadruple from what they initially thought. If they had just gone with the attorney opinion from the beginning, it saves thousands and thousands of dollars, millions sometimes.
And I think here, I hope the panel agrees, we're huge advocates of ChatGPT. None of us here are against it. We're just scaring you and making you aware, like, don't go too far with it. Valerie?
That's right. We just want you to use it prudently, and we're here to give that advice on how to do so.
So let's do some questions. AI does not know your state statutes. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But the big thing there, Valerie, is maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
It's the maybe, exactly. So when boards and managers are using it, they may not have the legal background or education to know whether or not it's citing actual law. Like I mentioned before, I have actually trained the AI tool that I had been using. And so it does know some statutes, but again, if it's an issue that have not actually trained AI, sometimes it's pulling up bills that had never been passed, maybe a bill from 20 years ago that was not passed into law. And so me having the background in law and understanding, hey, that never passed, then I'm able to self-correct. But I think a board or a manager may not have the ability to do so and may take that misadvice and apply it in their whatever circumstances they're dealing with. And that could be disastrous.
I bet if your AI met my AI, you would make my AI feel so bad because you're asking your AI like really complex questions and having really in-depth conversations. I'm asking like how many calories in an Oreo. You know what I mean?
You're going to take over the world.
Yeah, my AI got the short end of the stick here, I think, in the world. All right. AI does not know your community's unique amendments. Cameron, you're not a lawyer, but I think you would probably agree with this one, right?
Right. I mean, you could put all of the amendments in there, but again, we've talked about how it can miss stuff. So
It definitely missed stuff for sure. AI may hallucinate case law or legal standards. Dawn, I'm going to go to Valerie last on this, but I've read about this in the news and a lot of attorneys getting in trouble. I don't know what they're doing, but go ahead.
I'm really glad you brought that up. It's actually a terminology that's becoming more common as the word hallucinate. It's essentially that they've put together an opinion that is based on a multitude of different factors, but it's really not correct. Essentially, a hallucinate is incorrect. And so we're seeing that in a multitude of factors. And I think Valerie can speak more to that as far as the hallucination of the case.
Valerie, can I make a plug really quick for people to
Absolutely.
use? Okay. People should use HOA and condo attorneys. You always should have before. This is why you should now. I'll use Valerie as an example. You want to know someone that knows the HOA and condo law. Now you got lawyers out there that really don't know it, and they're crummy lawyers. Valerie, they're crummy. They're crummy, stinky lawyers who are using AI to try to break into the HOA and condo world. You want to be very careful what lawyer you pick. Valerie, I hope you
Yeah, I think that kind of broaches a more general topic. Absolutely, AI hallucinates. It comes up with bad statutes, bad case law, bad interpretations, legal opinions. But I think it goes to really what we're talking about is comparing AI and its error rate to humans, because we humans have error rates as well. I liken at least the versions of AI that I have tested out to a bad law clerk. Law clerks are law students that work in a law firm, try to get training, and they help the attorney, and their rates are lower, so it helps keep the client bills low. But I've had bad law clerks that give me bad case law. Maybe they didn't fully research to figure out whether or not that case has been overturned at a later date. And I think that the same is apparent in AI. And so to me, it's like we're balancing, okay, who has a lower error rate? Because that's what we're trying to avoid, right? Everybody's trying not to make mistakes, but we're humans. We're going to. AI is also going to make mistakes. So I think the happy marrying of the human that knows, that is educated and trained with the AI tool to help spot things is probably the best mix of eliminating and reducing errors. Relying on just AI is just going to lead to disaster because of the hallucination. And maybe it learns over time, and maybe it becomes smarter than me. That would be great, but right now it isn't there.
I'm just nervous though, Valerie, because before, if I called an attorney who wasn't familiar with HOA and condo law, they would have to outright lie or fake it. Now they can go on AI and they can fake it a little bit better. I'd be so careful now about trying to find a firm that has a background in HOA and condo law. This makes it actually harder, I think, to you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that has plagued the practice forever, that an attorney representing themselves as someone who can handle a case that they can't. Maybe they're struggling. But you're right that if an attorney is using AI in order to get their legal education and expertise, that is very dangerous for a board or an association that's going to go and seek their consult. However, that attorney better have malpractice, so that if they do give the association bad advice, the association has recourse via a malpractice claim against that attorney. But I do 100% agree that you should be looking for professionals with experience in the area in which you're seeking legal advice.
Reliance may increase fiduciary exposure. I think we've gone over this in depth at this point. Cameron, do you think we've hit that point well enough?
Yeah. Yeah,
AI can assist thinking. It cannot replace licensed legal advice. Uploading government documents into public AI tools. You want to jump on that, Valerie? That was one of the ones you kind of wanted to bring home, I think.
Governing documents, well, at least the way that we use them are public records, so I think we're fine with uploading those. I see no problem.
Wrong one.
Yeah.
Well, let me hit you two, Valerie, because I want to watch the time and leave the time for closing thoughts, all of you. Pasting resident complaints into AI for rewriting, inputting sensitive litigation or delinquency information. Valerie, we're talking about some of the confidentiality. You want to jump on that?
Yeah, so again, there's two issues there. One, you don't want to be inputting, at least from a legal perspective, or the board or manager, anything that's confidential into there, because you're potentially waiving your attorney-client communication privilege. In addition to that, if you actually get into a lawsuit and that you have some long history of chat with any AI tool, with a lot of information that you don't want disclosed in the court proceeding, the attorney could potentially request that in discovery. Now, can a litigant delete their history? It's not advisable and obviously violates rules, but I actually don't know if there's a way for an attorney to go straight to the actual AI system and say, here's a subpoena, we have a lawsuit going on, we want the chats involved with this person on this date about this topic. I don't know, that area has not really I guess, grown. And so I do think it's a concern, one that I try to heed caution with people with what they're putting into AI. Because essentially, even if you delete it, there may be an alternative route for an opposing party or attorney to still get that information. So just be conscientious, just like writing your emails. I always say, don't write anything in an email you don't want read out loud in court. I'd probably say the same for any AI discourse.
Valerie, there was another item too I was kind of saving. Did we cover it? It was about email, or if you don't remember, it's fine. Or, I mean, we probably covered it already.
Maybe the audience will remember and put it in the chat.
I want to fly through this one, Dawn, pretty quick, but I want to make sure I'm going to hit 3 or 4 at the same time. Where is your data going? Who owns the output? Are the conversations stored? I mean, I'm getting here with insurance, Dawn, cyber insurance.
Well, there was recently a really large lawsuit involving insurance agents. Some insurance agents decided to go to a different company and they were sued contractually. And what came up was that all of the insurance information, everything that the insurance agents were doing was recorded. Not only that, every time they, went on their computer at work and they looked at a personal email, it took screenshots. It had the information. So I don't think people know ultimately, even the employees of the insurance agencies, that their data was going somewhere and someone could replicate it in the future. And so in this court case, they were able to extrapolate a lot of the details that people just thought was gone, right? There's always an electronic or digital footprint that exists. In fact, it's very hard to erase it. So I think the concern from a privacy standpoint from the insurance is be very careful. And some of our insurance carriers are actually coming out with AI exclusions that you absolutely need to pay attention to. And those AI exclusions will be in connection with data sharing and also privacy. So cyber insurance policies are extremely important as to the release of that data information. Most of you out there, including the management company Ravenel, your insurance policy probably has a absolute cyber exclusion on the general liability coverage. So it's important to have that standalone policy. In fact, cyber liability is becoming more important than general liability these days with all of the aspects and copyright infringement. We have privacy and we have defamation. We also have the issue of, people taking pictures and making AI generated type scenarios.
That'll be a whole other topic on what people can get away with. Okay, we're under 2 minutes here. We got 1.5 minutes. Valerie, one other thing, if you want to hit it for your closing thoughts, or maybe not, AI policies. Do you think an association needs to have one? But outside of that, why don't you bring us let me have Dawn go, then Valerie, and then Cameron to wrap us up. Dawn, closing thoughts. At a minute.
ChatGPT or any type of their AI, we have open AI and then there's closed AI. Closed AI is typically what a company will use intercompany between themselves and not released. Acrosure uses its own proprietary AI information. That way it's not disseminated outside. So I would recommend, if you are going to use that, to start to use your own proprietary closed AI to help it become smarter and more beneficial and to eliminate your risk.
Valerie.
I agree with Dawn on that, and I don't know exactly all of the different ones that are private, closed. You need to do your due diligence, but you asked about an AI policy, and I think that it would be prudent for an association to have an AI policy because, again, you're dealing with a number of directors and managers. You all need to be on the same page on what AI is being used for. And so even if that policy says, to the extent you're going to put anything association related into AI, let's have a meeting about it to discuss it and agree, so that one person isn't unilaterally waiving attorney-client communication, putting things into AI that could potentially be discoverable in a lawsuit. And so I do think an AI policy, and you can actually start with AI to help you draft that policy. And I'm sorry, I've run out of time. So.
Oh, it's all right. You know, Cameron, I always think we're not going to have enough content, and it's never like a problem. Cameron, why don't you wrap us up? Is there anything that we forgot to talk about that we need to come back and explore a different time, or what do you think about today's session?
I don't think so. I think this was very informative, and I hope that our board members and managers both maybe got some ideas on how they can use the AI differently, and then also, made them think about some ways that, they need to take some precautions in using AI as well.
Valerie, I'll close. I asked ChatGPT today towards the end, draft me one sentence where I could tell Valerie that she should let me be right every now and then. ChatGPT tells me that I should tell you, Valerie, just this once, let me be right so I can feel like I'm winning at something today.
You're right, Ray. You're right.
All right. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thanks, audience. Thanks, panel. Cameron, thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being
Bye,
here.
everybody. See ya.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.